I used to be at the bottom of the class. Not just academically, I mean rock bottom socially too. People didn't even bully me. That would have meant they noticed I existed. But everything changed the day I discovered I could bind intelligence. Not metaphorically. Literally. If I spent enough time around a top student, something strange would happen, my brain would sync with theirs. My memory sharpened. My logic improved. My grades spiked like crazy. I didn't know how or why. I just knew it worked. So, naturally, I targeted the smartest person in school. Sarah Kazi. Straight A's. Beautiful. Confident. Untouchable. The kind of girl who wore her success like armor, and used her smile as a sword. I sat behind her, near her, beside her. I borrowed notes, offered help, fetched her water, carried her books. People started whispering. He's obsessed. Look at him, simping again. Sarah should charge him tuition. And Sarah? She didn't stop me. She didn't really care. She just kept shining, while I basked in her glow, quietly ranking up. First in tests. Then in quizzes. Eventually, midterms. By the time I hit top 10, people started noticing me. Even Sarah. She gave me one of those slow, amused glances and said, "You're smarter than you look, puppy." That was the moment I realized something. She didn't see me as a person. I was her academic pet. Her fanboy. Her shadow. I should have felt angry. But I didn't. Not until she switched seats. Not until she left me, just like that, and let another guy sit in her light. And just like that, my scores began to drop again. Until 1 week later, a new girl transferred in. She had glasses, rough handwriting, and didn't say much. She sat next to me. And for the first time in weeks, my mind felt electric again. 3 weeks later, she ranked second. Right behind Sarah. That was the moment Sarah finally looked scared. And I smiled. Because now, it was my turn. My name's Hamza. 18 years old. Average height, average face, average everything. Except for one not-so-average secret. When I sit near brilliant people, I get smarter. I discovered it by accident in 10th grade. Back then, I sat beside this guy named Zane who was, no joke, a walking calculator. After 2 weeks of group projects, I started solving equations in my sleep. Like, actual sleep. Dream-solving derivatives. I woke up writing answers in the air. And when Zane left the school, my IQ plummeted. I failed the next math test with a record low. It wasn't a one-time thing either. I tested it with others. Top students. Brain on fire. Mediocre ones. Flatline. Dumb ones. I swear I started forgetting my own name. So when I transferred to this new elite prep school last year, I knew what I had to do. Find the best. Stick to them like glue. Keep my GPA alive. That's how I found Sarah Kazi. She was more than a top student, she was the top student. Every subject, every club, every event, her name was there. Even teachers acted different around her, like she wasn't just a student, but the school's brand ambassador. And she was gorgeous. Not just in looks, but in that terrifying, composed way. Hair always tied tight. Notes always color-coded. Emotions always unreadable. The first time I asked to borrow her notes, she didn't even look at me. She just said, "Don't fold them." And handed them over. That was it. No sarcasm. No friendliness. Just cold, clean utility. But that was enough. I stuck by her like a moth to a flame, copying her routine, shadowing her library hours, offering snacks during study sessions. And sure enough, my grades soared. I went from background noise to buzzing potential. But with that came, whispers. Sarah's pet. Look, it's her errand boy. Can't he think for himself? I laughed it off. I knew what I was doing. Every quiz I aced, every test I topped, it was proof. I was climbing, and Sarah was the ladder. I had no shame. But the thing I didn't realize. Sarah wasn't just letting me orbit her out of kindness. She enjoyed it. She liked being the sun, everything revolving around her. Including me. The looks, the smug compliments, the way she sometimes called me genius like it was an inside joke, I thought she was warming up to me. I thought maybe this was leading to something. A date. A moment. A confession. Something. But then one day, just weeks before finals, she quietly changed seats. Didn't warn me. Didn't explain. Just moved to the front row beside Raheel Khan, the cricket captain. And when I asked why, she just smiled and said, "I thought you'd outgrown me. Time to fly solo, no." That was the day I realized. I wasn't her friend. I wasn't even a real classmate. I was just an experiment she got bored of. A stray dog she fed for fun. That week, my test scores started dropping. My focus shattered. It felt like someone pulled the plug on my brain. I wasn't heartbroken. I wasn't even angry. I was humiliated. She thought I was a simp, a weak little moth that'd burn without her light. She thought she'd won. Until a new girl walked into class, and sat beside me. Her name was Iman. She walked in late on a rainy Tuesday, hood up, glasses fogged, bag soaked through. No dramatic entrance. No high heels or dazzling presence. Just, silence. The class barely looked up. Except the teacher, who announced, transfer student. Midterm placement. Hamza, she'll sit next to you. Just like that, she plopped down beside me, shoved her damp bag under the desk, and muttered. "Don't talk to me. I'm here to study, not make friends." I blinked. "Noted," I said, quietly amused. Honestly, I didn't think much of her. She was plain. Wore no makeup. Never raised her hand in class. Never looked anyone in the eye. But on the third day, something weird happened. During chemistry, I suddenly understood a complex reaction I'd been struggling with for weeks. Not just understood. It clicked like puzzle pieces snapping into place. I checked Iman's notes from the corner of my eye. They were a mess. Scribbled, chaotic, no color coding. Yet somehow, she knew the subject inside out. Later that night, I dreamt of molecular chains, just like I had back in the Zane era. No. It couldn't be. But then it happened again. In calculus. In physics. Even in literature. Every time Iman sat near me, my brain felt sharp again. Not Sarah sharp. Sharper. I began to ace my tests again. Quietly. Consistently. And then came the rankings. A week before finals, they pinned the midterm results on the bulletin board. First, Sarah Kazi. Second, Iman Qureshi. Third, Raheel Khan. Fourth, Hamza Shah. My jaw dropped. Iman had leapt into second place, without ever raising her hand. And me? Back in the top 5, right behind them. Whispers started swirling in the hallway. Who's the new girl? She beat Raheel. Wait, wasn't Hamza slipping last month? But the one reaction I wasn't prepared for. Sarah's. She stared at the list, brows barely lifted. But I saw the twitch in her cheek. The slight clench in her jaw. And when she turned and saw me walking beside Iman after class, her expression froze for half a second. Then, she smiled. Too sweet. Too slow. Too fake. The next day, she approached me for the first time in weeks. Said, "So, you've moved on. I guess I should have charged for mentoring." I laughed softly. "I guess your light wasn't exclusive after all." Her smile faded a touch. That night, I got a message request. From Sarah. "You free after class tomorrow? I want to talk." But before I could reply, Iman tapped her pen beside me and whispered. "Stay focused. They only come back when they feel threatened." I turned to her. "Who said I was losing focus?" She didn't smile. Didn't blink. Just said. "Because I'm not here to help you. I'm here to win." And that's when I realized something chilling. I just traded one queen for another. I couldn't sleep that night. Iman's words echoed in my head. "I'm not here to help you. I'm here to win." Was she using me too? I stared at the ceiling, arms behind my head, mind racing. First Sarah, now Iman. What was I to them? Some weird academic parasite they tolerated as long as it helped them climb? Or was I imagining things? Was I reading too much into it because I'd been burned once? The next morning, Sarah smiled at me again. Too polite. Too familiar. She hadn't looked at me like that in weeks, until Iman showed up and nearly dethroned her. And Iman? She barely spoke unless it was about formulas or test schedules. But something about her silence felt calculated. I started watching both of them more closely. Sarah had returned to her usual throne, front row, Raheel on one side, fan club on the other. But sometimes, when she thought no one was looking, her eyes flicked to the back corner, to us. To Iman. To me. Once, I caught her staring at our notebooks during break. She didn't even blink when I met her gaze. She just said, "You're awfully quiet these days. Not missing me, are you?" I gave her a flat smile. "You'd be surprised." She leaned in slightly. "You know, some people are just shadows. No matter how close they get to the light, they'll never shine on their own." My jaw tensed. Was she warning me? Or trying to pull me back? Either way, I couldn't afford distractions. Finals were coming. But with every passing day, I felt the pressure building. Iman was studying harder than anyone I'd seen. She didn't eat lunch. She didn't socialize. She lived in that textbook world, and I was her quiet shadow. But I couldn't shake the feeling she knew what I was doing. That she could feel the drain. The subtle sink. And maybe, she didn't care. Maybe she welcomed it. But why? What was her angle? One evening after school, I caught her standing alone in the library, staring at the honors board. I approached cautiously. "You planning to beat her?" She didn't look at me. "Sarah?" "Yeah." She let out a soft, humorless chuckle. "She's already lost. She just doesn't know it yet." Something about the way she said it gave me chills. I leaned in. "You know about me, don't you?" Finally, she turned. Her gaze was calm. Direct. "You leech intelligence. That's your gift, right?" My heart skipped. "How long have you?" "Since the second day I sat beside you," she said. "When I started dreaming in code." I froze. She stepped closer, voice low. "Don't worry. I don't mind. In fact." She tilted her head slightly. "I wanted to test something." "What?" "If two minds can sync," she said softly, "what happens when they compete instead of cooperate?" I took a step back. "You're playing a game. Aren't you?" she replied. I didn't answer. Because maybe I was. Maybe this whole time, I'd been blaming Sarah for making me feel small, when in truth, I'd needed someone to blame. I hated how weak I felt without her. And now I hated how powerful I felt beside Iman. I hated that I needed anyone at all. But the scariest part, somewhere deep down, I loved it too. The power. The clarity. The edge. It wasn't just survival anymore. It was addiction. And for the first time, I wondered, what if I was the villain in this story? Finals week arrived like a storm. The pressure in school was suffocating, everyone's eyes were on the top three. Sarah. Iman. Me. And the difference between us? One exam. Whispers floated through the halls. Sarah's slipping. Iman might dethrone her. Hamza's making a comeback. And in the middle of it all, I was spiraling. My mind was sharper than ever. Too sharp. I was acing mock tests before even finishing them. I could predict exam patterns. Finish equations in my head. But with it came something else. Headaches. Nosebleeds. Exhaustion. Whatever this power was, it had limits. And I was pushing past them. I didn't tell anyone. Especially not Iman. She had gone cold. Mechanical. Laser-focused. Sometimes I'd speak, and she wouldn't even respond. Like I wasn't there, or like she was somewhere else entirely. But I should have known something was off. The day before the final exam, I stayed late to study in the library. When I came out, I saw Sarah arguing with a teacher near the admin office. Not just any teacher, the exam coordinator. I ducked behind a wall. Something about the tone in her voice chilled me. No, you don't get it. If Iman tops the exam, the scholarship goes to her. She earned it, the teacher said flatly. No, Sarah snapped. She manipulated it. Don't you see what they're doing? Her and Hamza, he's cheating through her. I stiffened. The teacher raised a brow. Do you have proof? Sarah hesitated. I'm working on it. I stepped back, pulse racing. She knew. Or at least, she suspected. And if she was digging, things could get messy. But the Real bomb dropped the next morning. We walked into the exam hall, me beside Iman, like always. Only today, there was a change. Our seats were rearranged. Assigned. Spaced out. Isolated. I stared at the list. Sarah, front row. Iman, back corner. Me, dead center. I turned to the invigilator. Why the change? She gave a tight smile. Instructions from the coordinator. Random seating. For fairness. Fairness? No. This was Sarah. She pulled strings. I sat down anyway, trying to ignore the tightness in my chest. The test began. I stared at the first question. Nothing. Second question. Nothing. Third. Blank. My mind was fogged. I glanced over my shoulder at Iman, too far. Too quiet. It hit me like a slap. I couldn't access her anymore. No sync. No surge. No spark. And for the first time in months, I was on my own. My heart pounded. My hands trembled. The clock ticked like a bomb. Sarah had won. Again. But just when I was about to break, my phone buzzed inside my blazer pocket. One message. From Iman. Don't panic. Page 3, question 4. Think symmetrically. You already know it. I read it 3 times. And somehow, my mind clicked. Just a little. Just enough. I started writing. And as I did, one truth settled in my gut like ice. This wasn't just about exams anymore. This was war. And I wasn't a pawn in anyone's game anymore. I was learning how to play. The results were posted on a Monday. A crowd had already formed before the bulletin board when I arrived. Voices buzzed. Breath held. I didn't push through. I just stood there, back straight, heart hammering. Then I heard it, someone whispering. Oh my God. She's been dethroned. Another. Who's Iman Qureshi? I slowly walked forward. There it was, in bold black ink. First, Iman Qureshi. Second, Hamza Shah. Third, Sarah Kazi. I stared at it. No words. No reaction. Just, silence in my chest. Like time stopped. Then came the voice I knew too well. You must be proud. Sarah. She stood beside me, arms crossed, lips pressed tight. I turned. Why would I be proud? You said I was nothing without you, remember? Her eyes narrowed. You are nothing without someone to copy. And yet, I said, voice calm, you came third. Her face didn't flinch. But her eyes, those betrayed her. You think this is over? She asked. This game? You've just become the new fool in someone else's spotlight. You mean Iman? I could have walked away. But I didn't. Instead, I said the one thing I'd been holding back for months. You played me, Sarah. And I let you. Because I thought being near you made me better. But now I know, being under you made me small. For once, she didn't have a comeback. I turned and walked away. But the storm hadn't passed. That afternoon, Iman wasn't in class. Nor the next day. I messaged her. No reply. On the third day, she finally appeared, quiet, pale, tense. And with her, the truth. We sat alone in the back as she slid an envelope across the table. What's this? I asked. Proof, she said. Of Sarah's report. I opened it. Photos. Screenshots. Teacher chat logs. Sarah had accused Iman of academic manipulation, claiming she used me to boost her rank. Even tried to link my seat changes to her decline. She wanted me disqualified, Iman said softly. She submitted it after the finals. Anonymously. But a teacher leaked it to me. My throat tightened. You're kidding. I wish. I clenched my fists. I'll report her. She can't. No, Iman shook her head. You'll stay out of it. I looked at her. Why? Because she's scared, she said, eyes gleaming. And scared people make mistakes. I stared at her, this quiet, analytical girl who had just beat the queen at her own game, and still had more moves planned. Who are you really, Iman? She smiled faintly. Someone who got tired of watching people like Sarah win just because they knew how to manipulate power. And me? She looked me dead in the eye. You were a risk, she said honestly. I didn't know if you'd leech or lead. And? Her smile turned sharper. You didn't disappoint. After the rankings, the school buzzed with a new energy. For the first time in years, Sarah Kazi wasn't the top name on the list. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the ghost in someone else's spotlight. But victory, I found, comes with a strange silence. I expected celebrations, high fives, even jealousy. Instead, I got distance. Sarah disappeared from conversations. She stopped showing up to meetings. Her fan circle dissolved overnight. People looked at her with confusion, even pity. One morning, I passed her by the lockers. She was alone. Unbranded. Untouchable in a different way. She didn't look up. And I didn't stop walking. As for Iman, she remained a mystery. Classes ended. The term was over. But I still hadn't figured her out. She didn't gloat. She didn't post her victory online. She didn't smile when people whispered her name with awe. She just packed her things and left the classroom like it was any other day. That afternoon, I caught up with her outside the school gates. "You really never wanted the attention, did you?" I asked. She shrugged, zipping her bag. "Attention's fragile. What I wanted was control." "Control of what?" "Of myself," she said. "My future. My name. My narrative." I stared at her for a moment, then asked what had been eating at me for weeks. "Did you really sit beside me to win? Was I just a strategic move?" She met my gaze. Calm. Steady. "No," she said. "At first, maybe. But later." Her voice softened. "You became the one person in that school who wasn't trying to impress anyone." That hit harder than it should have. "I thought I was using you," I said. "The binding, the sinking. I was sure I was just feeding off your brain." She tilted her head. "And maybe I was feeding off your drive. Your hunger. Your anger." I laughed under my breath. "What a weird pair we are." "We were never supposed to win," she said. "Not in a system like that. But we did." We stood there in the fading light, not saying much. And it felt like peace. A few weeks later, I got a call from the vice principal. Apparently, Sarah had withdrawn her complaint. No explanation. No fight. Just a silent retreat. The teacher who leaked her actions had been transferred. The scholarship committee upheld Iman's title. I received a full ride too, ranked second in the nation. But none of that felt as good as what happened next. The school released a yearbook. On the final page was a quote from the top graduates. Sarah's line was clipped and bitter. "Every light dims." Mine was just brighter than most. But Iman's? It read. "Never underestimate the quiet ones. They're usually calculating everything." And mine? I didn't write a quote. I didn't need to. Because by then, people already knew who I was. Not Sarah's shadow. Not a silent parasite. Not a simp. I was Hamza Shah. The boy who rose, fell, and rose again, without begging for light. I no longer feared losing intelligence when someone left. Because now, I knew. It was never their brilliance I needed. Just the courage to believe I had some of my own. Still, sometimes I wonder. If Iman hadn't sat next to me. If she hadn't pushed me, challenged me, outwitted even Sarah. Would I have ever found my edge? I don't know. But I do know this. The next time someone looks at me and sees average, I'll smile. Because average is what people call you before they see what you're truly capable of.